Hi, everybody. It's January 17th, 2026. Um, as we get older, we notice that our actions they come with attachments. They come with conditions. Like, for instance, if you're trying to upgrade something in your house, you have to make sure that you're registered to follow the rules with the different building codes in your neighborhood and your state and your jurisdiction or what have you. So, spiritually or personally, these what are the conditions that are added to your actions? When you want to make your voice heard, when you want to put in your opinion, the condition is that you have to make sure you're doing it politely. You have to make sure that the other person understands. So you have to speak in a certain way that they understand where you're coming from in a more beneficial way to the relationship. So in life, in our personal spiritual life, things that we do, things that we think, things that we feel come with conditions, and some more than others. And what toll does that take on how excited we are to live? And the best thing I can say to that is just to, when there are conditions that are annoying you, that are daunting, that are distracting you, um, the best thing is a sort of patience, like maybe take an interest in what those conditions are, maybe like using those conditions to either ratchet up the benefit of what you're trying to go through, or what you're trying to feel, what you're trying to do. Use those conditions to condition yourself, to be stronger, to be more patient, to be more understanding, to be wiser. So when there are many conditions that you have to deal with that could be annoying, that could take away hope, the trick is to turn those conditions into strengthening your character in most cases. And in other cases where there's not much you could gain from them, this is where you kind of increase your level of understanding, where you start to understand what's behind the backdrop of these conditions. Why are they there? What can you do to learn from them the next time they come around? How are they warping or focusing your perception? So this gets me to thinking about the obsession sickness that comes with life. One obsession sickness is like when you have been through something terrible, that you'll never be able to forget. Just the loss of a loved one, dreadful event of embarrassment, losing financial stability. What happens? The obsession sickness with this is that in your other areas of life that may be going fine, that may be going completely correctly, you may start to develop an obsession with fear that you're going to lose what you hold dear to you, that what you still have, you're going to envision yourself losing it. You play this fantasy, this dark fantasy of your head, losing what you still have, losing the comfort that you have, losing the ability to grow that you have. You start obsessing about this fear of even more bad things happening. And some will say this is normal, but this is, when you go through that, you have been through an event that left a scar on you spiritually. And the best way I've gotten over that is it's not really a fighting of this concept of obsession sickness. It's more of a shifting or looking around it, because it's like you have a scar in your body. In the first few weeks or months, you notice it whenever you look at your body, whenever you look at yourself in the mirror. And so what happens with life, eventually you start taking your focus back at things that are going well, that are going steady, that are reliable. So this obsession sickness usually resolves itself, but if you can't get past it and enough time to get back to your comfort level, you have to start looking at the parts of your spiritual body that are still intact, that are still healthy, that are still working normally. And then eventually what comes back is your circle around back to that scar. And you could count all the events, count all the successes and achievements And all the times people have been nice to you up until this point, and then suddenly that obsession with that fear of losing whatever you have will start to dissipate and go away. Another facet of this obsession sickness is an appetite that can't be satiated. When let's say you were about to start a relationship with someone and you're very excited and you felt like your life was going to change finally, and then all of a sudden they pull back and they leave you, or for some unforeseen reason it wouldn't work out and you weren't together with this person. So when this happens, you have a obsession with having a loving relationship, with being appreciated, with being shown attention, and you start looking for it, and the more you look, the further it seems to pull away from you, from everybody and everything, and you start to obsess about this concept of yourself being devastatingly lonely, and then you start to get a certain sense of entitlement. Like you know that you deserve love, you know that you deserve attention, you know you deserve companionship, and so you start to get entitled in a toxic way, and you start to lash out at people for unprovoked reasons. You start to be proactive in activities that aren't good for your health, and you just become toxic with this obsession that you deserve to be with somebody, you deserve a relationship, and it's not coming to you, so you start to act out. And when this happens, there has to be an ability to appreciate peace, because when you realize that God is always with you and God is always loving you, you start to shrink the size of your problems. If you could feel God's presence in your life, if you know God's presence is in your life, then your problems start to shrink, because you know that God ultimately has a reason for what is happening or what isn't happening. God ultimately has a reason for you to be going through what you're going through. And with your emotions, you put your emotions in check, and with this you get patience. And when you are patient, when you are emotionally patient, you start to attract things. Things come to you naturally and more easily. That is a good attribute to have, is emotional patience. Because what we see with emotional impatience on the street is when people start to give the middle finger to other drivers on the road. They start to lay on the horn. They start to cut people off and do dangerous maneuvers. This is being emotionally impatient. So you want to be proactive in the opposite spectrum of that. And the last concept of obsession sickness is feeding. Whatever you are feeding on and gorging yourself on, more namely, if you are eating something spiritually, emotionally, physically, to the point where it has become like a gluttonous, your obsession likely is with something that you can't come to terms with, or something that you are overlooking. You are trying to fill something that can't be filled with what you are consuming, with what you are ingesting spiritually or emotionally. So this obsession sickness, when this happens and you are loading yourself up with things that aren't healthy, the best thing, when this happened to me, it might have been with cigarettes or food, or when I was younger, alcohol, and emotionally it could have been it could be with feeling betrayed by close people in your life. Whatever is causing you to consume or gorge on what you're gorging, the best remedy I could see for that is trying to take on a approach to your life as being healthy. And healthy has become a buzzword, so it kind of takes the benefit away from the concept. But being healthy isn't just about being prideful about how you look or how you behave or how wise you are. Being healthy, it helps you enjoy life more. And when you are consuming and gorging yourself on things, you're trying to enjoy things, but it's always out of reach. But when you are healthy, you are actually deepening your level of enjoyment of life, and it's much more richer, much more pristine, and much more overwhelming in a good way when you are taking a healthy approach to life. So I hope this helps. Thanks.